Good evening, candidates, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Lee Summit Chamber of Commerce, we welcome you to this evening's Lee Summit City Council Candidate Forum. I am Matt Baird, Director of Business and Government Relations and with the Lee Summit Chamber of Commerce, and we are so glad you are with us this evening. We are pleased and honored to have the Lee Summit City Council candidates with us tonight, as well as each of you. I want to express our appreciation to the Missouri Innovation Campus for allowing us to host this event here tonight. I also want to thank Will Gibson with Down to Earth, Mark Parrish with Boyd Kinter, Thomas and Parrish, Jabbar Wesley with Spire Energy, and Chad Godfrey with Summit Video Services for sponsoring this evening's candidate forum. Chad will be broadcasting tonight's forum live on the Chamber's Facebook page, as well as recording it and posting it as soon as the forum concludes. Just a few housekeeping items tonight. There is water in the back of the room, they're in the tubs in the back. The restrooms are through the back and to your right. And I also ask that you please mute or vibrate your cell phones tonight during the forum. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our moderators for this evening. We have Mike Allen, Chair of the Chamber's Legislative Committee, and Andrew Felker, Chair of the Chamber's Governmental Relations Committee. Both of these fine volunteers are active volunteers in Lee Summit. Now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Mike. Mike?
Good evening to our candidates and audience members. Thank you for being here this evening. Before we hear from the candidates, I do want to walk through a little bit of the format for this evening. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to open, so they'll have 2 minutes for an opening remarks. We will go in alphabetical order, so there's no question as to who starts or who ends. But then if we have time, we will go in reverse order for a 1 minute final remark. Due to the number of candidates, as we see a large panel up here, the same question will be asked to 2 districts, followed by a separate question for the other 2 districts. Now, there will be a few questions that will go to all of the candidates. So essentially, we'll say first question will go to District 1 and 2. They'll have a chance to answer that question. The next question might go to 3 and 4. Now, there will be a time or two. We'll change the order of the questions up or down, or 3 and 1, or what have you, just so we hear from different people at different times. After the opening comments, we'll have the question and answer sessions. Questions are generated and have been generated by Lee Summit chamber members and submitted to the chamber. So we do have some scripted pre-printed questions, but we do encourage audience members to hand their questions to Tim Arbeiter. Tim will bring them up to Matt. Now, we already have a few that have been handed in, so certainly keep those questions coming during the forum. We will not ask specific targeted questions to specific candidates, but will review the questions from the audience, and certainly there have been times that we've had to meld them together a little bit because it will be very similar to what we've already prepared. The opening remarks will be timed. The answers will be timed. Once the alarm goes off, this is more of the candidates, please be considerate and finish speaking. We ask the candidates to please honor the time allotments. If time permits, we will provide 1 minute, as I said, to close the forum for closing remarks. We encourage you to take the profile candidate booklets that are around the corner, so you can have them certainly this evening. Take those home. If you think friends or neighbors want some, please take some as well. It provides information on each candidate and does have a few questions that have been answered. Lastly, during the forum tonight, we ask that the candidates focus on answering the questions. We've talked about decorum and respect for other candidates, and if need be, we will kind of sequester or shut down remarks, I guess. So in alphabetical order, the first person to speak, to have 2 minutes opening, would be Robert Dye from District 1, followed by Diane Forte, and then we'll move on to the remaining districts. Mr. Dye, you have your opening comments. Pop that little on-off piece on the microphone on the side.
Okay, I've still got my minutes. Do I still have my time? Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. It's good to see as many interested people concerned about the future of Lee Summit here tonight. I'm here for only one reason, to offer my services for one term of office in the City Council with the intent of providing my wide range of knowledge and capability regarding business operations and community and city needs to help in keeping Lee Summit on a path of improvement and progress. I'm not a politician, just a practical, much experienced man with continuous high levels of job performance throughout my career, primarily concerning business operations and banking, savings and loan operations, and real estate loan department management. I make no effort to form a political committee to back me and ask no assist with my campaign. I do not ask for any or accept any political contributions and pay my own expense. I'm a nonpartisan, unbiased, and vote for the best candidate available. I live in a rather conservative lifestyle, but I am strongly supportive of economic growth and progress. I have been civic-minded since a very early age and have been involved with numerous groups dedicated to community service and charitable causes. The list is in a handout, as well as I've given most of you a handout. So I've got 6 pages and I condensed it to about one. My primary goals for Lee Summit is the safety of the citizens, a strong fire department and police department, quality city services, and an efficient, well-paid city workforce to provide those services. High priority will also be for maintaining excellent schools and promoting commercial and industrial growth to provide jobs and help with lowering the tax burden on the homeowners. The completion of the 360 Charting Tomorrow Committee program for Lee Summit. Lee Summit's future needs to be advanced, as well as a sensible waste management and recycling and sustainable renewable energy program. City infrastructure needs to be met as well.
Thank you, Mr. Dye. That's 2 minutes. Diane Forte.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here tonight. I sit back here and I think about 4 years ago when I first was approached about becoming a city council person or running for city council, and I thought that I might know what was ahead of me. Little did I know that there was way more ahead of me than I realized, but I felt like at each opportunity I was able to come out of it and look at what I had accomplished and what we had accomplished as a council and be proud of it. And I think that when I moved to Lee Summit from the city of Raymore in 1995, I was enamored by the city immediately. And I think it was because of the people in my neighborhood. They were friendly. And I've talked to other people who have talked about that also. And I think that what I learned is that Lee Summit is not a city, it's a community. And so I feel like when I moved here, I became a part of the community. And I started working with downtown Lee Summit. I started working on the chamber. I just started getting involved, because in order to fit into a community, in my opinion, you have to get involved. So in that involvement of getting involved in the chamber and the downtown and economic development, Rotary, you become officers. Some of us do, some of us don't. I always seem to become an officer. I was chair of the chamber and on the downtown board. And I learned so much about what we are, who we are, and that is my focus of going forward, is who we are, how we want to be, and in the future we have a lot of crucial questions coming up for those of us that are on the council and future council. It's going to be crucial to get where we need to be with the amount of money that we have and the budgetary and revenue, and we're going to get there, and I thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Forte. Ms. Carlisle.
Am I on? Okay. Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you guys for doing this for us tonight. My name is Trish Carlisle. I'm the District 2 representative currently. I've been sitting now for 4 years, obviously. I want to run again because I really just don't think that I'm done with my service to this community. When I ran 4 years ago, I really had to prove myself to be the better candidate, as I had 2 opponents running against me. I appreciate Lee Summit for choosing me as the best candidate, and I hope that I've done a great job for you all. In the next 4 years, as Diane already spoke to, we do have a lot of big issues coming up. We have a lot of big decisions to make and money to find, really. So I think we need to have a strong council that can be respectful of each other, get along even if we disagree, and give and take when it needs to, just so that we can move forward in the business of Lee Summit. Thank you again for coming out, and I look forward to the rest of tonight.
Mr. John Elkin.
My name's John Elkin, as he just said. I have lived in Lee Summit my entire life. I was born and raised here. I think I literally spent a year and a half total of my life not living in Lee Summit. Went to Meadow Lane Elementary, kindergarten through 5th grade, then Prairie View in 5th grade, back to Meadow Lane for 6th grade, then Campbell Junior High, and then over to Lee Summit High School for high school, where I graduated in 1999. And I've thought about running probably the last 3 elections in my district, and I just never felt like the time was right. I would think about it and think, oh, I'm really busy. I recently actually I went back to school and have 3 kids, and trying to do that and then run for city council just didn't seem like a good thing. So I just feel like I'm ready now. I'm an engineer. I solve problems on a daily basis. That's what I do with people, large groups, small groups. We deal with budgets and time constraints and things like that. And this is my city. I grew up here. My kids are growing up here. I'm going to keep them here. I hope they want to stay and have their kids grow up here also. I guess that's really it. I want to be a part of these big decisions that are coming up and make sure that my voice is heard and my district's voice is heard, and that we do the best job we can do as a group. That's it.
Thank you, John. Beto?
Beto Lopez. I did file, for those of you in the 3rd District, as Jose Beto Lopez. Jose is my legal first name, for the record. Thought I'd put that out there. I want to thank you all also for coming out tonight. I sit here before you, as all of us up here on this stage or the front part of the room, I think for the same reason that you guys are here, is because we care. We really care about this community. Some of us have lived here your whole life. Some of us are transplants. My wife, Vanessa, and I, who's sitting in the back, have lived in Lee Summit for close to 22 years, have truly never really been engaged or involved in the community. Lee Summit has the characteristic of being a bedroom community. We lived that life with my wife and I early on, developing our careers, raising our family, going elsewhere to work, coming home to sleep. And probably not until probably about 4 or 5 years ago is I give the chamber much credit, because there is so much talent in our community in Lee Summit, in every district, in every corner of the city, that is untapped. People like myself that would have never considered running for an elected position or going elsewhere in the metropolitan area, conducting business, serving in leadership roles, and can't even do it in our own community until we get asked. So that's what happened to me. I had the opportunity to go through the the Chamber's Leadership Lee Summit class. I'm a graduate and I'm an alum, very proud of it. Met a lot of great people that are sitting in this room because of that experience. And one of the exit questionnaires was, if ever asked, would you ever consider serving on a board or a commission for the city? And I checked yes. So I've been involved with the Lee Summit EDC, the Chamber, and most recently with the Planning Commission. Being involved broadened my perspective, as some of the other individuals have mentioned already. And I feel like there are some issues that need to be addressed, and that's why I'm here, to hopefully make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Diane Seif?
Thank you, Mike. I want to thank everybody. Like everybody else has said, it's very important that you are here tonight. There's a lot of opportunity for involvement in this community. Many years ago, I moved to Lee Summit with the idea that I wanted to be involved early on. I became involved because I wanted to. I committed myself to start with the chamber because that was the best thing to do to get to know people. So I eventually became chair of chamber, like Diane and many other people in this room. I've been president of the Education Foundation. I've been involved in EDC and a lot of hospital boards and other things. I'm a business owner. I have 2 grandchildren, and I want those grandchildren that live in Lee Summit to be able to grow up in a place where it is a place to work, live, and play. And it's very important to me to stay involved. As Trish said, there are many things that we have in the last 4 years been able to accomplish, but there's a lot more things that we need to accomplish. We as a council need to work together in order to make those things happen. I believe in ethics, I believe in transparency, and I think it's very important to be representative not only of the city, but of the district. Many of my constituents, when I met with the previous council member, he said, I asked him the question, how often do you get questions from your constituents? He said, oh, maybe 10, 12 times. I have actually had 557 questions or comments from constituents in this community. That is an involved community. I want people to stay involved, and I can see that by people here tonight. Unfortunately, many of you, I would say I probably know 90% of you, and you have been involved in the community, and that's great, but we need to get more people involved and more people to vote. And that's why I really want to be part of this community to make it grow, to be a place where people want to grow, live, and play.
Thank you, Diane. Casey Crawford, we have 4 people from District 4, 2 that are running against opposed, and then 2 over here opposed as well. So, Mr. Crawford.
Thanks, Mike. As Mike said, I'm Casey Crawford. A little bit about me real quick. I'm an attorney in the area. I'm at the law firm of Chinnery, Evans, and Nail. I've got 3 children, 4.5, 2.5, and 8 months, Harper, Jackson, and Beckett. My wife is going on her 7th year at Lee Summit High School. She's an English teacher and the head girls basketball coach over there. And so we are truly invested in this community. My wife and I, we've purchased our first, we actually got married. I started law school, and we bought our first house all in the same month about 8 years ago. And so then once we had more kids, we had to buy a little bigger house. And so this is the place that we've called home. This is the only place that we've known. And this community has been so welcoming to my wife, my kids, and I. I initially started when I was in law school here, and I was assistant coach at the high school with the girls basketball team. And I got to know so many great people through in the school district and so many great parents and so many great kids. And that's how I got exposed to Lee Summit, is getting involved in the young kids' life and meeting the parents and working with the school district. And the people there were so welcoming. And I've had this feeling that I've wanted to give back to the community since I've been here. One of the questions I always seem to get when I'm out knocking doors, other than is, well, Casey, how tall are you? Is, why do you want to serve? Why are you running? And the reason is I'm running not only for my kids' future, but for everyone else's future in the 20, 30 years down the road. And that I hope in 20, 30 years when my kids are coming back from college, and hopefully I might have some grandkids, I'm retiring by then, that Lee Summit is the community that it is today. We've got great public schools. It's an extremely safe community. We've got great business opportunities, both small and large. We've seen how communities surrounding us have changed, and my hope is that we can keep it the same way in the next 20, 30 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Fred DeMoro.
First of all, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting and organizing this event, and thanks for everybody for coming out. This is part of the whole reason that we're up here because of community involvement. We obviously want to be more involved in our community as you are, as the people here. I'm grateful to have served or serving the residents of District 4 for the last year as a city council member, and as District 4 council member, I actually serve on the CEDC, the Rules Committee. I'm vice chairman of the Public Works Committee, and so those three committees, in addition to the city council, create a lot of time consumed. And going to Councilmember Seif's comment about constituents, I've not met her number of phone calls, but whenever somebody does call, it is usually it's something that they have thought about for a while, and they're looking for answers. And that's part of the reason that I enjoy serving. You know, I am passionate about economic development and supporting our city employees and improving the quality of life for all of Lee Summit. I'm invested in the community and possess the dedication to tackle the most important issues that come before the city council and stay responsive to the city and the District 4 constituents. But number one, I do appreciate the constituents in the community for keeping me on track and for helping me make Lee Summit a better community, because thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Donna Gordon.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for those who are attending, and greetings to those of you who are watching on Facebook and who will be watching later on Facebook. My name is Donna Gordon. Will be on the ballot as Madonna. That is my legal given name, so you can say you voted for a famous person. I'm a 27-year resident. Moved here in 1990 when there were 46,000 people here, and really kind of stumbled upon the property that we liked, and so we bought the house and kind of looked around as a young single couple looking for nightlife and going, shoot, what did we do? There's nothing to do here. But it over time, as the community has grown, it's been a wonderful place to raise our family. Our kids are 22 and 24. They went to Lee Summit schools. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the involvement of the community is what really makes this special. Served on Lord only knows how many volunteer committees through my kids' school, and was Girl Scout leader for 11 years and taught Sunday school and did all of those types of things, and really kind of stumbled into the whole process of public service, and that I'm a business researcher, so I'm always asking questions. I'm a public policy nerd. I read the reports. I question some of the assumptions behind the reports. Was attending a council meeting as part of with my son as part of a merit badge requirement when the Legoland decision was up for vote, and just really got very interested in the process of the decision making and that type of thing. I became part of the Lee Summit 360 initiative. I was to the Leadership Lee Summit. Been on the Land Clearance for Redevelopment Board. I was also a member of the Truly 150 volunteer community, and great respect for how everyone in the community really came together for that celebration. So look forward to continuing that. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Donna. And Bob Johnson, District 4.
Thank you. I also want to, I appreciate the fact that you're here and the chamber is sponsoring this. And just one quick thing, the two gentlemen to our right are running for a 2-year term, and Don and I are running for a 4-year term, so that's the difference. That's why you have 4 people. I don't want to draw attention to my age, but we've been here longer than anybody else that's spoken here this evening. We moved here 47 years ago. Our daughter, who's older, is in the audience, and we have her 2 children. Well, she's in her 40s. You see, that's young. Well, she has 2 children. That's there for our grandchildren. We have always, our household has always believed in public service, and you should give back to your community. And I've done some of that in the past in some other legislative bodies. And one thing about serving the legislature over the years, you've certainly gotten to see, as the state has developed the subsidy programs and assistance to businesses, I kind of know the history of a lot of it, where I found out as I served on the council the previous 8 years, until 2 years ago, because term limits I could not run. But I at least have a background in some of what's behind some of the legislation on the assistance to businesses, and I think in terms of Lee Summit to a great degree, especially with tax increment financing, we've gone too far. I think we need to move into knowledge-based businesses and leave the retail subsidies alone. There's no reason to do that. I am certainly for job production, but I want it to be quality jobs as defined by state statute. I was a home builder for about 30 years, also as an adjunct faculty member at UCM. I taught personal finance. I've been currently in the community. I'm heavily involved in girls softball. And our coaches meeting is tomorrow night. If you are a coach, make sure you're there. I also participate in pickleball at the Legacy Community Center. It's a tougher game than you think. Also, what I'm really proud of is about 3 years ago, I just thought we ought to have folk music and some concerts in the community, and we've done that, I think, highlighted. Thank you for coming. We'll certainly answer questions.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, candidates, for your opening remarks. We're going to move now into the question-answer part of the forum. Before we do, just a reminder, candidates, to keep your mic on. There's a little bit of a timing gap between if you turn it on and off, and hate to go through that. And keep it close enough so we can hear both in the audience and online. Audience members as well, if you do have questions or you come up with more, we will welcome them throughout the program, and feel free to submit them. Again, Tim is in the back. Just his hand is up, and he'll be wandering around looking for those questions. So again, these questions will not have a 2-minute, but we'll have a 1-minute time limit, and we're going to start down at the end. District 1, Robert Dye and Diane Forte. We will begin with that order. So question number 1, Mr. Dye, is now that you have shared your experience and your vision for Lee's Summit, how do you intend to have a good working relationship with your colleagues on the dais?
Would you repeat the question? I was trying to.
Absolutely. Now that we've had your opening remarks, how do you intend to have a good working relationship with your colleagues at the dais?
There's been quite a bit of controversy in the last several years. My opponent has been pretty much at the center of it in a lot of ways. She has been asked to be removed from office by the Missouri Ethics Commission. The city council was divided. Several of the city council members asked for her to be removed as well. And the city council was divided. The 4th district was disfranchised from a vote that would have made a decision. And my opponent would not be here today if that vote had been cast. She is, the mayor gave her a pass. He had the only vote that made the difference. And she paid a fine. She's on probation right now.
We'll now move on. Diane Forte, with the question, how do you intend to have a good working relationship with your colleagues at the dais?
Sometimes when you have to take the whole picture instead of your immediate picture. Your agenda can't be focused upon just yourself. Your agenda needs to be focused on the entire council. We are a council when we're making decisions as a council. And when we are making decisions as a council, we will not always all agree. When we go into a council meeting and we are given the same information, and there are 8 council members, and we come up with, there are many times, especially in the first 2 years, that we would actively be in different corners. It seemed like we were able to restart and stay focused on what was at hand. We've had a little bit of a difficulty in the last 2 years with some things going in different directions, but on the whole, I would personally do the same thing I've done in the past, and that is hold my head up high and just put a smile on my face and go for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And forgive me, candidates, we will hear from District 2 on this as well, and with each question, we will announce which 2 districts will be responding. So forgive me, District 2, for not announcing that ahead of time, but I'll repeat the question for you and start, Trish Carlisle, with you. Now that you have shared your opening remarks, how do you intend to have a good working relationship with your colleagues at the dais?
Thank you for that. I feel it's very important to not just have 8 people up there who agree with everything, but to have 8 people who have 8 different views that can really hash out the information. You have to listen to everybody else's perspective, digest it for yourself, figure out how you can all somehow come to an agreement, whether it be compromise or just splitting the vote, really. But it's just really important that we continue to be able to talk and discuss the issues without getting negative, and just keep the ideas in the back of our head that we're all doing this for Lee Summit as a whole, and that we need to show that we are strong leaders for our citizens and for our children. And so that's what I would continue to do.
Thank you. John Elkin?
I said before, I'm an engineer. I'm a problem solver. That's what I do, and I have to work with people all the time. And we don't always agree on the best way to do things. In some cases, you can go back mathematically and figure out, oh no, you really are wrong. And in some cases, it's just a matter of opinion, and we just have to figure it out. And I think bringing that to the table is a big plus for me. I do have my real estate license. I do practice real estate, and so I know how to negotiate a little bit too. So I think that would help. I don't always think I'm right, but when I think I'm right, I'm going to let you know it. But I'm also going to listen to your side and have a conversation with you. I don't think I'm better than anybody that's here today, actually anywhere in this room. So thank you.
This question will come to District 3, and then we'll have another district answer the same question. So this question, in your opinion, what charter changes have been the most significant that have taken effect in the last 12 months? So first person in District 3 would be Beto Lopez.
Obviously, I'm not the sitting candidate, and I am aware of the charter review and some changes that were made within the past year. The one that comes to mind for me the most, not having been privy to be involved in that process, is obviously the mayor has a different role in going forward. The mayor does have a vote now on the city council and how we conduct business. And I think from that perspective, whoever the mayor is has to be a strong character and leader, and help city council people avoid this dissension that's been going on for the last 3-4 years. And so I think that has the biggest impact from the charter, in my opinion.
Thank you. Diane, you want me to restate the question?
Would you please?
In your opinion, what charter changes have been the most significant that have taken effect in the last 12 months?
I too would probably cite having the mayor vote in our decisions moving forward. I think it's very important. Probably one of the most significant changes was having the mayor as part of the voting process. One of the things as a council member, you have to make sure that you check your agenda at the door, that you become unemotional, and that you get your facts and you get your facts straight, and you bring those facts to the table when you're talking with other council members. We'll have the opportunity to not only have our decisions that will be able to be part of that discussion process, but we'll be able to know what the mayor thinks and how the mayor will vote. And I think this is a very important thing, because a lot of times we will want to ask the mayor what he thinks, but yet we don't have that ability to have him have that vote. And I think it's very important moving forward.
Thank you, Diane. We'll also ask this question of District 4. So we'll move that to Casey Crawford first. And so Casey, in your opinion, what charter changes have been the most significant that have taken effect in the last 12 months?
So if we can all remember when the charter review came out and then that was put on the ballot, that was a very contentious ballot measure, and that was up to the vote for the citizens. And I think at the core of that, the benefit was increased transparency, allowing the citizens to understand truly where all the members of the council sit, including the mayor. that is of extreme benefit to the individuals because they understand where the entire body, including the mayor, sit. And then, of course, the mayor's got some additional duties like being able to appoint the mayor pro tem. But very similar to what Beto and Diane have said, I think at the heart of what the charter, the new changes with the charter did is increase transparency with the city council and gave everyone a voice, and just truly allows the citizens more of an insight into the inner workings of the city council. I think at any point in time, the more the city can know, the more the individuals can know, is only of benefit.
Thank you, Casey. Fred Demaro, need to repeat the question, or are you good?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. I think the consensus is the mayor voting, that's going to be the largest impact on the new council when it's seated next month. That adds a new dynamic, as was previously stated, because now instead of 8 votes, there will be 9 votes, and the veto power was taken away. As a member of the Charter Review Commission, I remember going back and forth about that. But actually, I think one of the largest impact articles that we put in force, and I had the pleasure of actually sitting on the Charter Review, and now I'm sitting on the council, and to see it to fruition is an Article 3.15 that actually establishes, or in the charter establishes, an ethics code for the elected body of the city of Lee Summit. And I think that's going to be a new challenge, too. Thank you.
All right, Fred. Donna, you want me to repeat the question, or? All right, okay.
I'm not sure I've got a lot to add to what the points that were already made, although, frankly, I do think with the mayor being involved, it does create, rather than the mayor as the facilitator, then it needs to be the mayor as leader. And so up front, perhaps some of the discussions can be made to try to form some consensus around issues so that there's not a lot of discord on the dais. And I do applaud the ethics addition, and in hopes that the ethics policy will then increase the level of transparency and trust in the council, both to the public and within themselves.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you. There obviously I thought the loss of the mayoral veto was a mistake, and I'm sorry that was taken away. I think the trade-off was to allow the mayor to vote. The issue there is not so important for me, as I think we now have a mandate from the charter that allows a conflict of interest. The conflict is that the mayor is the executive level of city government, elected citywide. The council is the legislative body and the policymaking body by our charter. And so you now allow the mayor, the executive officer of the city, to choose the legislative chair of the council. And I think that would allow potentially too much influence from the mayor to the mayor pro tem and the committee appointments that are made and so forth. And I think to bring it up to like at the state level, that's like the governor choosing the Speaker of the House. And I don't think you ought to have those two entities brought together.
Thank you, Bob. We're going to move on to our next question. The question is this, and this will be a question for all candidates. What would you identify as the biggest challenge facing our city, and how do you address it? We'll start with District 2, and John Elkin, if you'll begin.
Biggest challenge facing our city. I know the big one right now is dealing with the employee pay and the reserve funds. That seems to be the one everybody keeps talking about. So I think with dealing with that, I am someone who does believe that the employee pay needs to come up. The compensation needs to be better, and I also believe we do need a reserve fund. I think we need to, as a council, need to determine how much, where we need to cap this out at, and make sure we always have that amount of money in there. And then when we need funds, we can go in there and use them, and we have to have a plan to repay that as well. You can't just keep draining the swamp. So I think that seems to be the biggest issue on a lot of people's minds right now. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Trish?
Thank you. I think our biggest issue or challenge facing the city currently and in the future is our revenue. We've seen that many of our revenue streams are trending downward. That is going to continue to happen as we lose sales taxes and other taxes around the city. When we talk about the employee compensation, I do believe also that employee compensation needs to be taken care of. Where I may differ from others is that I truly believe that we need to find a revenue stream that can take care of that indefinitely, instead of reaching into our reserves to take care of it one time and then basically just praying that the money shows up somewhere else. So I think we really need to identify new revenue streams for our city in order to keep up with our growth and our public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. We'll move on to District 4. Casey Crawford, what would you identify as the biggest challenge facing our city? How do you address it?
I think it's sustainable growth. Like I said early on, my hope for that, and my plan if I were to be elected, is not for the next 5 years in Lee Summit, but for the next 20 to 30 years. Ensuring that when our kids come back from college and then in 20 to 30 years from now, we're all in a great place still. That we've got great schools. It's a very safe community and great businesses, both small and large. And to do that, you've got to have sustainable growth. You can't be too risky as a city. The policies we have to take have to benefit all three of those sectors. That's what I think keeps this suburban community so great and keeps families wanting to move here and keep property values high and keeps the place safe. You've got to have that in mind when creating policies. You can't be on the short term. You can't make policies that might be of short-term benefit to the city if it's going to harm the city in the long term. And I believe I've got that foresight to be able to determine and help usher some of those policies in to ensure that, in 20, 30 years, everything is great still.
Fred?
Thank you. I actually have a top three, and that is public safety, economic development, and infrastructure improvement. Anybody can drive down the street and know that we have some problems with our infrastructure, our streets. But I'm going to circle back to public safety. We have a problem in this city that started the talk about the compensation study, and that is retaining and recruiting public safety individuals to come to our city and work, and retaining the ones that we already have. And hence that compensation study and the compensation talk all comes back or develops into a budget issue, and revenue streams have to be identified whichever way they need to go. And that's taxes, that's managing the budget, going through the budget process, and finding that hanging fruit that possibly can be nipped and save a little bit of money that way. But thank you.
We're going to keep you on our toes just a little bit, so Donna, you're not next. District 3. Diane Seif, if you'll please, the question of what would you identify as the biggest challenge facing our city? How would you address it?
One of the biggest challenges that we have right now is one that is going to bite us if we're not careful, and that is the compensation. We need to bring up the compensation to where it is actually paying employees, the safety components, and different organizations within the city. But at the same time, we have to have controlled economic development with strong infrastructure. And in order for us to do that, we have to look at the revenue streams. We have to look at the tax base. We have to look to see what those tax revenues are that are going to be able to be supportive. And one of the biggest challenges we have is franchise taxes are going down. Retail sales taxes are going down, and those two things impact the revenue stream that supports the compensation. So we as a council have to look at those and identify potential cost savings that may need to be handled in order to have the compensation for employees in place.
Thank you, Diane. Beto?
Yes, thank you. I take a little different approach than Diane on this particular issue. All the things that have been mentioned, compensation being the biggest issue right now, biggest heartache for everybody, public safety, economic development, infrastructure, all of these are byproducts or elements of two of the biggest problems in our community. that have been issues for a long time is the tax base issue and the dysfunctional leadership that we have. If we don't address the tax base, people talk economic development. I think there's a misperception about economic development. There is a right way and a wrong way to use economic development. And I don't think that kind of expertise as a whole exists within the council. And because of the lack of leadership, people look at their own specific agendas and ideas and not collectively come up with solutions. I think tax base and dysfunctional leadership are our biggest problems. And I hope to make a difference in those two areas.
I'm going to move to District 1. Diane Forte, if you'll please respond to the question. What would you identify as the biggest challenge facing our city? How do you address it?
I think that everyone so far has given a great example and answer of what our main challenges are. I think coming into city government from public sector, I wish that we were more proactive instead of reactive. And by what I mean is it would be better for us to have attempted to solve some of the issues that we are in now 5 years ago. So what Casey says about 5 years from now is very, very true. And I would hope that going forward, we would do that and become more proactive of what's going to happen in 5 years as much as we can, because like Trish said, the revenue source, our revenue is, it's down, it's streaming down because of retail and online sales, and we have to get a grasp on that because we get 27%, I think 30% of our revenue comes from personal property tax and 24% from sales tax. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Robert Dye.
Are we on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I strongly feel that probably the main thing right at this moment is the workers' compensation. I've already given a formula that has worked well for the City of Liberty to the mayor and the administration, and it's a workable program. I've also got another formula devised that is a no tax increase formula that would work well. It's based on increasing revenues. The last 5 years revenues have been up, and the formula I have is based on increasing revenues. It's a basic formula that there will be no backsliding of compensation for employees. It will have a cost of living increase every year, and it will be one of the priority items in the budget. The fire department, waste management, recycling,
Excuse me, Mr. Dye.
Sustainable and renewable energy, and infrastructure.
Thank you. So to round out this question, Bob Johnson, if you'll be the next to respond in District 4.
Thank you. And certainly compensation is an issue. I noticed, though, and because I know a couple of council members talked about going directly to revenue. Since I left 2 years ago, the expenditure side of our budget was $59 million. It's now estimated that in June, the expenditure side is going to approach over $69 million. So I think this council needs to pay a little more attention to the budget process, certainly over the last 2 years. And revenue is behind expenditures for this year. There is no question about it. But as we look at our expenditure side and see where they've been allocated over the last 2 years, the people, our employees that are on the street are most important. Those of us that interact with our public safety employees and so forth are very important. We, in District 4, we actually lost an ambulance for several months. And it's not fun to live in an area where, even though we were assured by everyone in the city manager's office, it would not hurt us. Well, I don't know if it impacted healthcare or not.
Thank you, Bob. Donna, if you'll conclude our answers to this question.
I'm not going to sound like a broken record and completely go back over the compensation study, although I will note that I think the employees of the city need to be part of the discussion in terms of what the solutions are. And I do think that the overall long-term vision and having that as a centralized discussion around the budget, around all of the community issues, because at the point we're kind of lurching from thing to thing as opposed to looking at I think like Casey said, what do we want to be 20, 30 years from now? There's a lot of different competing voices around those ideas, so maybe we as a community need to have a central vision, and that can guide some of the decisions as we go forward.
Thanks to each of you. Is that asking a question all takes a little bit of time, so thank you very much. This question will start with District 2, and then we'll move on to another district. How will you, as a council member, encourage citizen participation in city and council, business and activities? So, Trish, ladies first.
Thank you. So how would I personally encourage it? I mean, I think we do a great job as a city, as the chamber, as the downtown Main Street, as all the other organizations, EDC, in getting community involvement. Personally, the only way I can get community involvement is by going into my district, by asking people to become involved on certain committees or to sign up for any kind of volunteer position within the city. We can't really force our community to be involved as city council people, but I think we do a great job as a community as a whole in getting people involved. For my first 2 years on, I sent out a community letter every week, and I just didn't get the clicks on that. So I'm not sure personally how we can do that. Thank you. John, how will you encourage citizen participation in city council business or activities?
I agree with Trish that it seems like a lot of, at least the downtown things, there's a lot of involvement, parades and things like that. The festivals down there, those seem to be pretty good. I think, it's internet and Facebook, I think, is just the main thing. We need to reach out that way. You're going to get people. Other than that, it's talking to people, showing up to events yourself, getting people to spread the word. You can't obviously go knock on everybody's door in your district and say, hey, we're having this council meeting, you should come. I would just raise awareness, and I think we need to maybe do more as far as getting out that there's council meetings and things like that, if that's what you're getting at, getting people to those. I think a lot of people don't even know those happen. So internet and Facebook, advertise.
Thank you. We'll also pose this question to District 1. So Robert Dye, how will you, if elected, how will you encourage citizen participation in city and council business and activities?
It's a difficult question. I would say that maybe more communication from the city government to the general public, asking them to come to the council meetings and some of the other committee meetings if it's possible. Find out what the interest of the city's citizens are to a greater extent, and try to address those interests and make them known, and try to work out situations where they will be interested and come to the meetings. That's pretty much about it. So.
Diane, pose the question again, or you?
Oh, I think I'm good. We need more people to be on our boards and commissions. We have some that have had the same board members and the same commission members for years, and we really need to have new people get involved in that. We also have leadership, like there's a chamber leadership Lee Summit. There's a city has a leadership program, which is incredibly good for people who want to look at maybe getting involved in the city. And information. The best way to do that for me is social media on a city council site that I have. And it sometimes is just something like 291 is shut down, or 291 is going to be. I share an awful lot from the city website onto that, because then you can put so many people look at social media as an avenue. But I do think that encouraging people to volunteer, encouraging them for community service.
Thank you, Diane. Our next question will start with District 4. And Donna, I'd like you to be ready for this one. What is the role of the city in regards to the safety of our schools?
Well, obviously, the school board forum is coming up, and so I think that will definitely be an interesting question for those candidates. But I think as a public safety role, obviously with the city managing public safety and making sure that the schools do have the resources they need in terms of resource officers, and if there's the ability to do some proactive, like for instance, in our neighborhood, we have a neighborhood watch program. So is there the possibility to put some sort of similar program in place with the schools that help the kids maybe become more aware of what a legitimate risk assessment might be, something along those particular lines. But certainly to the extent that the city can support public safety and make sure that they're fully resourced, then therefore, that should also help with identifying potential issues that could impact the school district as well.
Thank you, Donna. Bob?
Thank you. I would tend to agree with that. Our given what's been happening over the last 5 years in particular with softer targets with people, and obviously children are softer targets, unfortunately, and we're going to, as a city, we need to work much more closely with our schools to make sure we provide the public safety officers that they need. Now, obviously, from a budgetary standpoint, we need to work together on this. I also think we ought to, in terms of safety, getting to and from schools, and I know we've worked on it a little bit in the past, encourage bicycling a little more, and if we are going to do that for the kids that are close in the neighborhoods, make sure that our public safety officers are there to make sure that the bicycle traffic, especially for the elementary schools, is done in a safe fashion. But obviously, we just have to work more closely with the needs of our school board and obviously jointly fund what's needed, because we just don't want anything to happen like it happened other places in the country to happen in Lee Summit.
Thank you, Bob. Fred, if you'll, with District 4 continuing, Fred, if you'll address our question.
Thank you. Number one, this is a community issue, and it's felt nationwide. We all hear the news. We all are affected by the news, and each community needs to partner with all the right people to develop solutions and to keep the community safe. And this list includes parents, schools, city officials, and community leaders. And it goes back to, if you see something, say something. And all those people I mentioned, schools, community leaders, and the parents, most of all, and the schools need to partner and to come up with a solution or any solutions to keep our schools safe.
Thank you, Fred. Casey?
This is an issue that literally hits home for me. My spouse is a teacher at the high school, and this is something I'm intimately concerned with, because I don't like that sometimes I've got to be worried when my wife goes to school if something's going to happen to her. And as if I were to be so blessed to be the next city council person, that's something I would take extremely seriously. While the city doesn't have a whole lot of direct effect in terms of raising funds, in terms of funding those mechanisms, because that's the school district's purview and jurisdiction, I think the city can take a step in first commending the individuals, Dr. Falkenberry and Officer Sims at Lee Summit High School and the parents and the students that reported the things that were happening a couple weeks ago, commending the community when those things happen, but supporting the school district in their decision, and that's what I think.
Thank you, Casey. We'll move to District 3, and Beto, if you'll lead off, what is the role of the city in regards to the safety of our schools?
Okay, I think that's kind of been discussed quite a bit. I don't want to be redundant, but yes, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. It is a community issue, somewhat like Casey. Neither my wife or I are involved, or professional educators, but we have two teenage daughters that are in high school, and it hits really close to home for us as well when my sophomore daughter comes home after the recent incident and says, "Dad, I'm kind of scared. When I'm walking through the halls, I'm scared." That's a horrible feeling for any kid. And I agree with everything that's been said. We have to have partnerships, collaboration. As a city, I agree. We need to make sure our law enforcement, public safety personnel are properly trained and communicate effectively with the school district and the resource officers, and just have a very specific plan.
Diane?
No, this is a very big passion for me because having been involved with the Education Foundation for numerous years, I know that the school board is being very proactive currently for both the R4 and the R7 school districts. And they're being proactive because these are concerns that are community focused. Also, there's a lot of activity that's happening within Lee Summit Cares, and they're bringing forth information to the council. So that information is first, the council has to be educated on some of the activities that are occurring within the district, but also the lead should be the school board, and the school board is taking that lead. And I'm very, very proud to say that I have all the confidence in the world. And then on top of that, then the resource officers and the safety groups will be right behind promoting, helping, and doing whatever they can to support that collaboration and partnership to help with the community.
Thank you, Diane. We'll move to District 3 with this question, and then another district. What are your thoughts on policies to incentivize economic development in the city? So District 3, and that would be, I guess, Beto, if you would. What are your thoughts on policies to incentivize economic development in the city?
Definitely. I know that our current policy has been revised here recently, and over the last few years has received a number of revisions. I've reviewed the policy. I think it is well written. I think it covers all the key bases on paper of how a jurisdiction, a city, should approach economic development. And I've said this before, I think that unfortunately, it's only as good as the paper it's written on. If we're not competing effectively on a regional basis, and I think that those policies identify key areas within our city that have been targeted as great development opportunities, and starting with downtown, it's a jewel, and we need to build upon those successes that we've had, but the existing policies, we need to take it up to another level and sensitize whoever is successful in winning these city council seats so that people aren't intimidated or have the wrong perception of these incentives.
Diane, you have the question, or you want me to refer you?
Nope, I'm good. We have, as a council, adopted the incentive policy, and as we have approved certain economic development projects, we have looked at that policy again and revised it recently. And it's very important to keep looking at that policy as new projects come forth. When projects come to the council, not every project that is brought forth is the right project for the right area. And I think it's real important when we look at those policies to look at that incentive policy, the matrix, to see if there is room for CID, a TIF, or whatever that incentive might be. But if it doesn't make sense, then we have the ability to make decisions and reject that, or come back and say, please tweak this or change this. But I think it's something that we have to look at on a continual basis and revise the policies and the incentive policy in particular as the city grows, because economic growth is very important as long as there is controlled growth and infrastructure with that.
Thanks, Diane. Same question, District 2. So, John, what are your thoughts on policies to incentivize economic development in the city?
I agree with Diane in that it has to be an evolving thing. You can't just have a policy and it's going to be in place for this set amount of time and this number of years. My main issue, I'd like to see more startups, entrepreneur stuff. I feel like that, growing up here as I did, when I was younger, there used to be a lot of smaller shops around, downtown and other places, and you knew people that ran the shops. And I like when I go into a business now, I'm like, oh, I know the guy that owns, like Stewie McBrew's downtown. I know the people that own that, and it's nice. Hey, you guys used to be in here all the time. And I saw my thing is I would like to incentivize more entrepreneurs and build up new people locally. And that's kind of my number one thing as far as business goes in this town. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Was that a paid advertisement, by the way? I just want to know if we need to go fleece that business real quick. Trish. There you go. Trish, same question. You want me to restate it? You're good.
No, I'm good. Thank you. I think as far as our policy is concerned, we have a great policy. I think we are a leader in our community in putting together a policy, and that council worked very hard on that policy, a lot of back and forth. We did just relook at the policy on the CEDC committee and make a few changes to it as we saw fit. I think that's something we need to continue to do is revise as needed. I think one of the most important things when looking at incentives for economic development is that we are getting our bang for our buck. And if we're going to incentivize something, we need to make sure that we are getting the public infrastructure dollars needed in order to give the incentive to whichever company is asking for it. I also think it's very important as we run out of space to grow that we look at redevelopment very seriously and some of our empty buildings and older structures that we need to get into play. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Our next question, District 4, and we'll start with Fred tomorrow. The responsibility of a city council member is the assignment to various boards and organizations within our community. What role will you play to maintain positive working relationships between the city and these organizations?
Most of all, it comes down to communication and giving them, the groups and the public forums, ability to be our partners. And we need to continually communicate with them, give them the power to strive and be very successful. And I know that we have a lot of structure that comes to the council that our groups are looking for, and we need to direct that communication to keep them strong, keep them coming back for more, and like I said, help them thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Casey.
Could you repeat the question? Thanks.
Absolutely. A responsibility of city council member is to be assigned to various boards and organizations within the community. What role will you play to maintain positive working relationships between the city and these organizations?
Part of the reason why Lee Summit is so great are these individual groups and commissions and boards that make up the city, that will look at the downtown Lee Summit, Parks and Rec, and things of that, public works. That's how a lot of the day-to-day cities run, and having open lines of communication and ensuring that the city council is functioning well, and that it's not so divisive that those individual groups can't work cohesively with the city council if individual city council people are unable to work together. So creating a culture and an environment where there is collaboration with the city council, with those individual groups and boards and commissions, and creating that culture will only benefit the community. Allowing those groups to truly collaborate with each other and thrive is at a community level is only beneficial.
Thank you, Casey. District 1, going to go to you now, and Robert, if you could answer the question.
The relationship between city committees and the public, like they say, it is one of the main things to do is to keep a steady communication with the public. invite the public to attend the meetings and to find out what their problems and concerns might be and address them if possible. Give them encouragement, give them city concerns that can be met, and just to keep an open line of communication and keep inviting them back.
If I understand your question correctly, it's what we are liaisons.
Correct.
So as a council, we're each given by the mayor pro tem, the current mayor pro tem, a liaison position. Since I've been on the council, I've been a liaison to the Parks and Rec, to downtown Lee Summit, Main Street, and Board of Aeronautical Commissioners. And this year I'm on the Livable Streets Advisory Board. What that does is it brings to those boards and commissions that I said we need more volunteers and more people. Sometimes it gives them a sense that you care about what they're doing, that someone on the city council is there, not really representing the city, but somewhat representing the whole community of the city. And so I sit there, and I have totally enjoyed the year I was on the Aeronautical Commission. I was amazed with what the knowledge that the people on that commission brought to that commission. And so my job would be to go to that commission meeting and report back on part of our agenda, which is committee reports. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. We'll move to District 4 with Bob and Donna on this question. Describe how you would expand and diversify the city's economy. So, Bob, go right ahead.
Thank you. What I like to see, and I was hoping to have answered another question earlier, but it gets into it. I think we need to shift. The priority over the last few years has been retail, and that's nice, but I'm not sure we ought to continue incentivizing those particular industries. So in order to now diversify, as you say, we do need to think outside the box. We need to look at people that are industries and businesses that are primary knowledge-based. Just no more of the retail place. We have a lot. They can be here all day long, just don't need to be incentivized. We need to have quality jobs, types of encouragement, more in technology and finance, research, medical science, and so forth. That's the kind of businesses I think we ought to go or shift into and encourage people to come and talk with us. And also, given the fact that they're quality jobs based, to have more of a tendency to live here and work here. And so, again, I think just outside the box, I want us to be able to live and work and maybe shop in the same environment. Thank you.
I certainly think as city council people, we are not in necessarily a position to pick winners and losers. I don't think it's the government's role to pick winners and losers. But I do think we need to make sure we are creating as welcoming and as helpful of an environment we have for our existing businesses, just as we do to try to roll out the red carpet and bring new businesses to town. Just recently at the Economic Development Luncheon, there was 5 different companies that shared how they're growing by leaps and bounds within Lee Summit. So let's show some respect to the homegrown talent and make sure that we're accommodating to them, as well as looking at what's the next new shiny object that we want to throw some incentives at. Because at the end of the day, it all has to work together. And I will agree that I think retail ship has sailed. It's definitely an industry and a lot of transition. We need to be very careful.
Let's actually stay in District 4 on this. And Casey, would you provide an answer to this question? Describe how you would expand and diversify the city's economy.
I would do that by, first off, it's in order to expand and diversify the economy, you've got to have a city council that's conducive to the same. If you've got a city council that is operating in dysfunction in the city and businesses don't want to come here, that's the first issue. You can't make businesses come here. You've got to present a great product, and our product is Lee Summit, and it starts with the city council, the most visible group here. It starts from the top down, and so in order to do that, we've got to first show the businesses, hey, that we're a welcoming community. And in order to diversify, yeah, I understand retail and things of that nature, the tax base from that is going down in lieu of online shopping. And there are many, many avenues in which we can diversify, whether that's through a larger corporate business park or trying to attract a larger international corporation with the growing airport that we've got here. Those are all things where I think we can diversify and improve, but it starts top down, I believe.
Thank you, Casey. Fred, how would you expand and diversify the city's economy?
We are very fortunate in the city to have a great partner, and that's the EDC that advertises the wealth of Lee Summit as far as a very educated workforce. We have plenty of real estate for economic development, and to get the word out and to enhance the public perception of Lee Summit. We have a lot of people that leave Lee Summit every morning and come back every night that would love to work in this city, but for the lack of a business park or an engineering software company, they have to leave. So we need to encourage those type of industries to come to our city and help us maintain or to create an atmosphere of economic development and work, live, and play in Lee Summit.
Thank you, Fred. This question will go to all candidates. We've talked about this to some extent, but would like you to drill down a little bit more. The city's moved forward with the wage enhancement for city employees. What additional strategies or revenue enhancements should the city pursue to cover these increases? And I'd like to start with District 2, Trish Carlisle.
Thank you. I think we kind of already hit on this topic a little bit, but increasing wages for our employees, and I think we're up to $5.5 million now, and taking that out of our reserve fund is only going to last so long. We've really, and I agree with Bob, we do need to look at our budget and see where we can cut spending, but we also have to find new revenue streams, and whether that be through increasing our commercial base, which is greatly needed, so that we have a larger tax base there, or finding new tax streams, tapping into some of the tax streams that are already being collected through the state of Missouri we're just not getting. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that we need to look at that, and the budget committee and the council as a whole really have a lot of work to do to find a good stream that can take that 5.5 million plus every year.
Thank you, Trish. John?
I think this actually kind of goes back to the last question, because we do need some new revenue, and I think we really do need to incentivize, like engineering firms, like where I work at. I mean, there's 3,000 people in this building in Overland Park. It's a relatively small footprint for how many people are there, and I'd say a third of those people leave for lunch every day and go to restaurants right there and spend their money right there, and a whole bunch of them live there, and I think something like that is something to definitely think about and incentivize businesses like that, because we really are losing it on the sales tax. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I think it really did go back to that last question. We do need more of a revenue stream. So,
thank you, John. Going to go to District 3, and Diane, if you'll be the first to respond.
Very good question, and I think that we all can have difference of opinions on this particular question, but one of the things that I think that when we talk about the revenue, we need to look at different opportunities, but we need to look at those commercial bases and how we can encourage more companies to come to Lee Summit. And that's what the Economic Development Group is doing in partnership with the city, and having to look at those incentive policies to see what we can do to have that growth. We also need to look at entrepreneurship, and when we have an innovation campus like we're in this building today, it's important to realize that the innovation campus is a collaboration between Longview and UCM and Cerner and other companies that are using this to develop a workforce. That workforce is going to be here in order to provide some support for more commercial businesses here in Lee Summit. And I think that we have to look at those opportunities to look at that revenue growth and how it can be applicable to the city.
Thank you, Diane. Beto?
Yes, definitely. Very important question for all of us. And I think we would all agree. I would bet if you took a poll of everyone up here in front, that we would all agree that our employees should be compensated in a fair manner and competitive within our region. That goes without saying. I think we all believe that. So how do you go about doing that? And the ideas that have been shared, I agree with some of these. And it starts with the tax base and diversifying that tax base. We need commercial. You need more jobs. What John mentioned is exactly, the idea that I have, entrepreneurialism. We have the Velocity Group. We need to promote entrepreneurs in tech, health, the key industries that are high-growth industries. And unless the city council sets that tone, a positive tone, we're going to stumble. So it starts with us setting the tone and working with all the groups, including the EDC and the chamber, to collaborate together and bring in more businesses and more jobs.
District 1, Diane Forte, if you'll address the question.
We are, like it's on, is it on? Thank you. We are, as a council, our council meetings are, I'm going to take a different approach on this because what everyone has said is very correct, but we're watched. Our council meetings are watched as much as we might not like to think that we're watched. We're not just watched by our community. We're watched by developers regionally and across the country. People can watch and look at us to see if this is a place that they want to come. And of course, our economic and our incentives are good, but they also want to know what we're thinking when something comes in front of us. And I've sat on our council, and I will sit there and I will tell you, and I will be the person, like so many of us, but I'll let you know why I'm voting yes and why I'm voting no on a certain incentive that will, oh, I'm so sorry. I have so much more to say.
Rob? Mr. Dye?
One of the best ways of attracting new commercial business and industrial enterprise is to have successful and well-managed businesses here already, to supply assistant technology, to try to attract suppliers, technology to assist present companies. The mayor of the years ago in Edwardsville, Kansas, he indicated that the best way to improve your economic development is to keep your present business community healthy and to keep in close touch with them to find out what their needs are and to bring in assistants, suppliers, warehousers, and technology support. If you've got healthy businesses at the present time, they just naturally attract additional business, and keep an open mind for the big one.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dye. Well, let's move to District 4. Casey Crawford. Again, we're asking the question of the city's move forward with wage enhancement for city employees. What additional strategies or revenue enhancements should the city pursue to cover the increases?
And at first glance, in a perfect world, I would rather not have to have increased revenue put on the backs of the individual taxpayers to increase sales tax. And I don't want that. So if we can find other funding mechanisms that are created organically and within the community, I believe that is more advantageous to increasing sales tax, increasing personal property tax, because nobody likes getting taxed more. But it kind of goes back to my previous answer and kind of what Ms. Forte stated. It starts at the top. When businesses or potential businesses, and regionally or nationally, look at the city, they've got to go into there and have some certainty, and that they think, okay, this is a stable environment where I can create and grow our business, and I can make a large footprint in Lee Summit. If there's any uncertainty as to that, they're not going to invest millions of dollars in building a plant and getting workers to come to if they don't believe there's certainty. And so it starts with the top down, and I think I would be great in helping that.
Fred.
Thank you. As previously said, it is a budgetary process. We are going through that process right now. And we're looking at things that will cost contain, and any change to the city's current tax structure would need to be fully vetted and debated and should only be put in place after cost containment and expenditures are looked at and exhausted. I mean, there are things that we are looking at as far as cost containment and expenditures that may give us some way to stay away from a tax issue. Thank you.
Donna, District 4.
I think in some cases we may have not necessarily looked at all of the opportunities for cost savings, not just from a let's go take a scalpel to the budget. I mean, there's always going to be somebody that's unhappy with that, but are there ways to continue to streamline processes? I manage a manufacturing network, and people, companies all of the time are looking to be able to take processes and streamline them. We've done a good job with the development office, but then I think also ties back to the ability to, it doesn't really, incentives are important in some calculus of what deals we're going to get here in Lee Summit, but frankly, it's the ability to work with the city and have a good visible process that's not overly bureaucratic, and having a good workforce is also what helps bring new jobs and new businesses to the community. So it's a mix.
Thank you, Donna. Bob, if you'll wrap up this question.
All right, thank you. During the 8 years from 2008 to 2016, when I was on the council, for 3 of those years, I had the honor of serving as the budget chair for the council, which gave me a little more involvement in looking at our revenues and expenditures. On a couple of occasions, I mentioned to our city manager, maybe we should look at the concept of zero-based budgeting, where each year the budget has to be defended. Because right now, all we do is the city manager says, here's what we spent last year, and here's what I recommend percentage-wise for next year. So I think this crisis we have now is the perfect time to finally say, maybe 3 departments at a time. You can't do it in 1 year. But let's get into the concept of proving each year's budget. At some point, a program isn't needed any longer. Maybe we don't need as many people over there, but we need more over here. But certainly the concept of proving the budget each year is, as called zero-based budgeting, is what I would be certainly very much in favor of seeing our council adopt this.
All right, we'll go to District 3 on this question. What should the city, and Diane, if you'll address this first, what should the city do to address housing needs for economically stressed families and seniors in Lee Summit?
Great question, and I'm glad you started with me. Having served on the Housing Authority as a liaison for the city, it was a very eye-opening experience. We recently received a housing study that was done for the city, and it projected the housing needs as far as the number of apartments and the senior living and affordable housing. The CEDC has reviewed that. The council is considering it, but there are definite needs in this city for affordable housing, whether it be for seniors or whether it be for, but seniors is a real, if you look at the aging population, the senior group needs to be able to have a place to live in Lee Summit. And we have a lot of apartments that are coming to Lee Summit that are very high scale, high luxury apartments, but we also need that affordable housing. And we need to make sure that the Housing Authority has input into that as well.
Mr. Lopez.
I would concur. I think many times being in a high-growth suburban city like Lee Summit with such nice amenities, so many nice things, in general higher demographics, we tend to forget that there is poverty in our backyard. And I agree with Diane. I think we need to keep utilizing the Housing Authority to continue to look at that environment of that type of housing stock. both for young families but also for the seniors. I completely agree with that. Also, I know that we do have a void in the housing market, housing stock. We have homes in 250,000 to 500,000 in abundance. We have quite a bit of those in our market. We need homes for young professionals, people that need a starter home. And I realize that is very important, and as a collective body, I think we need to work with the proper authorities to make that a better situation, no doubt.
Thank you. Let's go to District 2 with the same question. Mr. Elkin, what should the city do to address housing needs for economically stressed families and seniors in Lee Summit?
I do not have an exact answer, but it would have to be along the lines of first, again, you got to have the revenue, and work within a budget. Most importantly, you have to find somebody that is willing to work with that as far as a developer. And a builder. I think when we're talking about senior homes, we're talking about either John Knox Village and even there, those places you need a lot of slab homes and things like that. And I don't know. I guess that's the first thing, is to find somebody that wants to do that and build something like that, and then figure out how to work with them and make sure economically it's going to work. I think that's the number one thing, and then again, it all goes back to revenue. You got to pay for it. So, thank you.
Trish, good on the question?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I think really we need to do two main things. First of all, our city needs to better support the housing authority and help them figure out ways to increase quality housing that is affordable for the lower income persons, whether they be younger families, single moms, single dads, or the elderly. I think with support from the city and really help and direct through the city departments is big. I also think that the housing authority needs to find partnerships with developers and other people in our community that would be willing to help them out and take them along, and maybe the housing authority has the ability to bond. It does have the ability to build its own structures, but it does need that partnership with the community and developers in our community that would be willing to take that on. So I think those are the main two things we should do.
Thank you, Trish. This next question, we've talked today about diversifying the economy, expanding the commercial base. I want to get real specific here on your opinion on what the city should do to encourage the growth of startup businesses, kind of encouraging the entrepreneurial environment in the city. And I'm going to start with District 4, and Donna, if you'll be the first to respond.
I've actually worked in a business incubator and have had quite a bit of experience, was also with a seed capital fund, so I understand about the ecosystem of startups. It's not just a question where you can put a sign up and say open for business. I think probably, perhaps the next step is to look at what resources are currently available in the broader community. KC SourceLink is a great resource with lots of different resources for different kinds of entrepreneurs and how to provide support for that. But frankly, there needs to be an environment where they can support each other, they can learn the skills they need to grow their business, and they're going to need access to capital. So being able to tap into some of the more active entrepreneur communities around the city and find ways that we can replicate that here, because it's not just a question of build it and they will come. There has to be an ecosystem to support these businesses. I think the velocity step is a great first step.
Bob.
Yes, thank you. I actually at one time at UCM, I taught a class in Introduction to Entrepreneurship, and as a home builder, maybe many people don't think home builders are entrepreneurs, but at some point they are when they start out. So I've been there also, and certainly I talk to more veteran home builders, which helped me. So we need to provide an environment that entrepreneurs can have people to talk to, mentors. And what seems to be forgotten in terms of some other groups in town is that just in the fall of 2016, we voted in Lee Summit for a property tax increase for a mid-continent library system, of which includes a massive renovation of the Colburn Road Library, which will house their small business. activities for Eastern Jackson County. They have it in Clay County now. And it's an existing program, and they work with entrepreneurs. They have mentoring programs. They have special programs for the different kinds of entrepreneur industries that they have. So I think we need to work with our libraries who are here, and that building will be renovated in the next 2 to 2.5 years. Okay.
Thank you, Bob. Fred, if you'll respond to the question, encouraging the growth of startup businesses and entrepreneurism in the city.
There's no question that the city of Lee Summit should assist entrepreneurs to come to our city. We should encourage entrepreneurs that want to enrich our community, and we should always search for ways to invest in those individuals. And we need to remember that they bring a unique perspective, new ideas, and new ways of innovation. Thank you.
Casey?
Entrepreneurism and small businesses is what communities like Lee Summit are built on. It's great to have large corporations and large businesses here in Lee Summit, but the small businesses and entrepreneurs are what make Lee Summit Lee Summit. And providing an economic structure that incentivizes those companies and allows them to not have to be caught up in a bureaucratic stranglehold so they can't operate, where there's so much overhead where it's difficult to operate, is something that's not conducive to those smaller businesses, because their overhead is smaller and they have smaller budgets, and where increases in those overhead is a big, where they're going to stay in business or not. So the city avidly supporting those in both its policy and in word is something that needs to be always maintained, because like I said, small business and entrepreneurism is what has made Lee Summit and what will continue to make Lee Summit in the future.
All right, we'll move to District 1, and Robert Dye, if you'll answer this question. What other types of investments, or what types of investments would you like to see in the downtown area?
It's a good question. I would say the first thing that you should consider in any case is if there's a definite need. If there is a need, then there should be an effort to attract businesses that will complement the existing businesses there, and try to get businesses that actually have some investment themselves, and that, if at all possible, to have businesses come in that have a successful existence and maybe have some financial backup and source of income to sustain them until they get started. Okay.
Ms. Forte, question again, or are you all right?
Would you repeat the question, please?
In your opinion, what should the city, I'm sorry about that, wait a minute. What other types of investments would you like to see in the downtown area?
Most definitely in the downtown area, we need density. We, in order for the businesses that are there and for us to have additional businesses, we need more people. And I think that there's great opportunity for us to have some affordable apartments, and I think that will increase so much of the revenue stream for downtown for the businesses. In the last few months, we have got, I think, 4 new boutiques. So we're striving on having a downtown that's has businesses and entertainment, and I don't want to see us do one over the other. I like it equally, but in order for those businesses to be sustainable and everyone to be able to reap the rewards of having a business, we need density. And we have it like on certain times, but we need it a lot. We need more, and I think the answer is density.
We'll move to your left in District 2, same question. Trish, what types or other types of investments would you like to see in the downtown area?
Well, I would agree with Diane on that. We also have a bond issue that passed quite some time ago that said we would put an entertainment area in Lee Summit, and we've been working on that, and we've been trying to get partners so that we can do some sort of entertainment area / farmers market, etc., in the downtown area for the citizens. But also we need really to invest in housing and in parking. I think anybody who's come to our downtown knows that we need additional parking down there. And we do have the one parking garage by City Hall, which is great. But that's still quite a walk for some people. So I think we should invest in the housing so that the businesses that are currently there can thrive. And we also need to invest in parking so that people that do not want to live in the downtown area do have somewhere to park when they go down there.
And then John, what other types or what investments would you like to see in the downtown area?
I actually agree with both of them. I think parking's an issue, and would definitely like to see some more people living downtown. It'd be really nice to have people living there. They can walk to downtown and shop there and go to the restaurants there. And I think maybe invest in some I know I've said the internet already before, but internet advertising for downtown. I know some of us have seen some, but maybe do some more to get some other people that don't go down there very often. Let them know it's there. Come on down, and I think maybe work something out with businesses down there. Hey, if you rent this building, you have a business here, we will, provide you with a URL or something to help out. That's it. Thanks.
This question is going to be for each of the candidates. So I'm going to start, Beto, with you. If you are elected, what would be your top 2 priorities for your district?
Starting with District 3, I think there's some infrastructure issues that continue to be challenges in the area where I live. We have water runoff issues. There's flooding that happens on the very north side of our district in the Oaks Ridge neighborhood. So I think that's a top priority that we need to work with our city public works and engineers to address. Also, there's some arterial streets that need attention, and I would bring a regional perspective to our city. I keep hearing the same excuse over and over again when you have Lee Summit Road that was widened and made safe for the biggest stretch, almost from Independence down to downtown. But then you have a stretch between Anderson and Lakewood Boulevard that is not only doesn't look good, but it's very dangerous. And you have a hospital right up the street. So I keep hearing the excuse, well, that's Kansas City's problem. Well, it is, but it's our problem as well. So I think we need to start addressing those issues right from the very beginning.
Diane?
The 2 things that are most important to District 3 currently, and these have not changed, but they are actually growing issues, is the infrastructure. That with a lot of the activity and the development that is happening in District 3, the infrastructure is not meeting the needs of the community in District 3. And Public Works is working on with MoDOT and trying to address some of these issues, but it's a huge issue. Also, it's been said that the Public Works and stormwater is an issue. It is in part of the district. But one of the most important things is the safety. We have an inadequate fire station in District 3 that is important that it be updated, and that the response time in District 3 for public safety responses is not meeting the needs for the citizens in that particular district, and we need to look at that because it is a large district.
Thank you, Diane. We'll move to District 1, and Diane Forte, if you'll respond, the top 2 priorities for your district.
In District 1, it runs from downtown Lee Summit to the farthest south is Raintree Lake. So there's the older homes in the downtown area, and then there's newer homes like in Saddlebrook, Drum Farm, that are brand new. So there's a huge gap, and what I think that for those of us on that south side and all the way through the downtown core, transportation has been a huge issue in the past, and I think that with the 291 South interchange is going to be great for us that are on that side of town. But I also think that what we're doing in the downtown area is going to help the downtown. But the infrastructure is a challenge, and I think we're trying really hard. We just got the CIP tax, and we're going to start getting money from that tax like very shortly. But of course, there's really not enough money to do that. But we're going to work on everything we can. Thanks.
Thanks, Diane. Rob, if you could continue.
The main issues, I think, in my area is rehab of some of the housing that is in the central part of the area. The stormwater flooding west of Todd George Road and 5th Street in that area, and probably the main one is the trash storage area that is northeast of the landfill behind the school. That seems to be a kind of a touchy issue right now. So that's about it.
Thank you, Rob. We'll move now to District 4, and Donna Gordon, if you'll respond to the question. Top 2 priorities for your district.
Well, I think the overarching priority overall is going back to the idea of kind of a priority-based budgeting, because it's lots of, there's all kinds of things we can throw out there and say, hey, we need to fix this, but first of all, we need to figure out how to pay for it. As I've been talking to folks, probably the 2 things that come up the most are going back to the stormwater and the infrastructure issues, especially if we're talking about increasing density downtown on 2-lane roads and the traffic. Just overall, as we've grown, the roads I don't think have necessarily kept pace with the amount of growth that we're looking at going into the future. And then the second issue is looking at these kind of large multifamily developments, and is that the kind of future of Lee Summit? Is this something we as a community want to continue to build on, and what do we want Lee Summit to be 30 years from now? So I think it needs to be a broader community discussion with a lot more input.
Bob?
I guess I'll join with the chorus here. Certainly, I think the most important issue in east of 291 in the 4th District is stormwater erosion. In our capital improvements tax extension last year, we now have money in that budget for stormwater. So at a minimum, and I think there's enough people here talking about, we need a citywide plan for how we're going to deal with stormwater erosion control. And along with that would be the curbs and streets, because they get impacted by stormwater also, so those 2 would be together. And I'll tell you the other thing that's really people have talked about and mentioned, 291 redevelopment is important. I agree. We need to do as much about redevelopment as we do somebody coming in from Japan. But along 291 in the last year, we have 6 restaurants that have closed. And you can't keep giving away incentives to everybody in other parts of town, and 291 just dies there. And there needs to be a redevelopment of 291 North. Let's put it that way. Those are the 2 or 3 major developments that I want to see should I'm elected.
Thank you. Casey?
For sake of sounding like a broken record here, the biggest concerns with the citizens are stormwater infrastructure issues, flooding, and to echo kind of what Bob stated, some of the blighted or deteriorating areas of 291. For those who are familiar with the 4th District, there's been a vacant Taco Bell there for many years, it seems like now, and that building is only suited for a Taco Bell. So things like that. There's just been some blighted areas that I could think could really be fixed. And the second part is there's been some divisiveness in District 4 in the past couple of years. And I think I could be a fresh perspective that could help kind of mend some of those fences within District 4 to kind of bring everyone back to the table and bring us, even though we're a larger community as Lee Summit, but bring District 4 as a whole back together and make sure we're a cohesive unit to the extent we can be, but repairing some of those issues. I think I can assist with that.
Fred?
Thank you. Obviously, we're the 4 of us are members of District 4. So again, not to sound like a broken record, but mitigating the stormwater issues. We have several tributaries and streams that flow into our stormwater in District 4 that are privately owned. which only hinders the city's ability to get a handle on it. Although we, our capital improvement tax, we do have $25 million that is earmarked for stormwater improvements and maintenance, and we do intend to look at those issues. The other issue, again, is the North 291 corridor. There are a lot of empty storefronts, empty restaurants, and it is on the radar screen as a redevelopment area, but it needs to continue to move forward and have a lot of traction because it is not attractive. Thank you.
Okay, our last district, District 2. John, if you'll lead off. Top 2 priorities for your district.
Stormwater erosion. I'm kidding. I want to say we have a lot of roads in my district that are being traveled more and more, and they're narrow and windy and hilly, and you'll come up over a hill, and you don't know there's a car coming the other way until you're on the hill, and there's no shoulder, so definitely some road work needs to be done. And on the other side of that, my 12-year-old son got a new bike for his birthday. He loves riding his bike, and he has friends that live in other neighborhoods, and it would be really nice to have some kind of a way you could get there on a bicycle. So I guess that's I would like to see some more bike trails and some wider roads. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Trish?
Thank you. So, yeah, broken record. So infrastructure is a big deal in our district as well as the stormwater. Those do go hand in hand. The runoff erosion and the stormwater erosion of the streets is huge, and that's all over the city. So that's not just district specific. But so on the other side of that, my priorities would be to continue to support the development we have going on there and future development going on in our area, and the historic preservation that we currently have going on there. I think it's very important when we talk about what Lee Summit wants to be in the next 30 years for us to keep a hold of our history and preserve what we have so that the future generations can see it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish, and thank you, everyone, for your remarks and responses to those questions. We're now in the home stretch, so this is your opportunity, candidates, to have one final chance to speak and provide some remarks to the audience. We ask that you limit your remarks to 1 minute or less, and as we said earlier, we will actually reverse the order. So instead of starting down at District 1, we will start here at District 4. And Bob Johnson, you will be the first. You have 1 minute, 60 seconds, and Donna then follow after you conclude, Bob.
Thank you. Again, I have served before, and so I was out this last couple of years. So I thought about, do I want to continue participating in local government? And yes, I do. And I do believe in giving back to our community. What I wanted to wrap it up with is that I don't have cast any aspersions on anyone. You know, I built houses for 30 years. The city never bought a house from me. I never sold anything to the city. I don't belong. I mean, I belong to a lot of organizations, but the ones that I mentioned here, I've never been active because I've been active in other organizations. What I pledge to do again is just what I did before, and that is have a citizens advisory committee of everyday people that live east of 291 who gave me their advice on what they thought the city should be doing. Also, we had open forums twice a year, which the whole community was invited to, and I want to continue that. And basically, and I'm not trying to build a political resume. I'm not running for anything after this. And so again, I thank you for this opportunity and for you taking the time to come, and for those of you that have endured this for 2 hours on Facebook.
I don't have a political agenda, political background. I'm totally new to this and am learning as I go along, but I have studied the issues for a long time, and I do, more than anything else, value transparency and communication. And this just infuriated me. I was reading the Business Journal. There's a big development with 2,500 apartments going into a residential area where it used to be a golf course in Overland Park. And they basically rearranged the zoning on the project because it then makes it more difficult for neighbors to mount a successful protest petition. And I'm thinking, okay, these are their elected officials, and they've just agreed to a proposal that's going to make it impossible for them to protest against it. In no case, shape, or form would I ever, if I am elected, approve any sort of maneuver that eliminated the ability for public input.
Thank you, Donna. Fred?
I'm interested in seeing Lee Summit continue to thrive and grow. And as a current city council member, I'm well invested in that venture. I want to continue the good work that is going on and continue to finish the projects that we have started recently on the council and continue that leadership role that is a coveted position. I want to also thank everybody for coming and thank the chamber again.
Thank you, Fred. Casey?
As Fred stated, thank you all very much for coming out and listening to us speak. And for those who are listening online, thank you very much as well. Kind of rings true to me, the phrase, or the be the change you wish to see in the world. For me, I'm running to bring some fresh perspectives to City Council and the City of Lee Summit. I truly, in the past 10 years, like I said, I've raised my family here. I bought 2 homes. My kids were born here. They've been baptized here. I mean, literally, this is the community that my family has known. And it is my hope that if I were to be lucky enough to be elected, that everything I do would be doing it for the city, bringing that fresh perspective, bringing an analytical mind as I'm an attorney to the city council is, I think, an extremely advantageous opinion or mindset to have. And different perspectives, different walks, different walks of life. Those types of things are very beneficial for the city council, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Diane?
First of all, I believe in people, not politics. I believe in cooperation, not confrontation. And I believe what is important is that we work together as a community to not only listen to constituents, but to listen to the whole city, because it's important that we move this city forward, that we continue to grow, but we maintain that growth in a very conscious way and look at the challenges that we have ahead. I have a proven record. I've served on the council for 4 years. I have been on many of the committees. I've been on the planning commission, and I understand a lot of the processes, having been in a lot of organizations in this city. But I just want you to remember that it's important to vote on April 3rd. And I want to thank everybody for being here, because you obviously are very interested in what's happening in Lee Summit, as we are as running council members. And I want to thank the chamber, because I think the chamber puts forth an effort that is great to bring people together in a collaborative way. It is with that hope that we move forward with a very positive April 3rd election.
And I'll close by saying that we've talked about challenging issues that are going on within our community. But at the end of the day, Lee Summit is a great community. So let's be positive about it. I feel that I would be the best candidate that can help us going forward, because my background directly has been in the world of economic development, commercial development. The tax base is one of the biggest issues that I mentioned earlier. The dysfunctional leadership is another issue. Whether it's perception or reality, sometimes perception is reality, as we all know. And I think I bring that fresh perspective. I know Casey has mentioned that word a couple times. I actually have that in my literature, fresh perspective. That is what I bring. I've been a professional. I've had a very good, successful career in those areas of economic development, commercial real estate, commercial lending, and I hope to bring that to all of our entire city, not just my 3rd district. And so I would appreciate your vote on April 3rd as well. And I want to thank the chamber and all of you as well, and people watching online, for having the opportunity to address you. Thank you.
When I was in high school, I had a friend who he grew up his whole life. All he wanted to do was be a firefighter. And he graduated high school, and he was going to go be a firefighter. And at that time in Lee Summit, I think there was one job opening, and hundreds of people applied for that spot, and one person got it, only one spot. It was brought to my knowledge that recently we had 3 openings, and they couldn't fill them. And I thought, well, that's weird. I guess my point is, this is the city I grew up in. I kind of was shocked that people didn't want to work here and have that job here. And so I want to get in there, and I want to solve that problem with everyone else. I want to figure it out, and that's what I do. I solve problems every day, and I want to solve this one, and I want my city to be the city where people want to come to work. I want somebody that's living in another city say, hey, I want to go there, that's a great place to work and live. Thanks.
Thank you. I also would like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and for listening tonight. It's very important for the community to be engaged with us and for us to be engaged with the community. I think and truly feel like I've done a good job for Lee Summit for the past 4 years. I have tried my hardest. I've done everything that's been asked of me. I listen to my community. I take it for the team when I have to, although it's not very easy. But I would just enjoy your support in the next 4 years. I think that my first 4 years, the first 2 years were just a huge learning curve. Getting everything, all the breadth of knowledge that we get into your head and getting it straight. And so the next 4 years will really be helping to tear apart things and figure out how we're going to move forward from here and make Lee Summit great. Thank you.
It is not easy when you make a mistake, and I did. And it's not easy to say you're sorry and admit to a mistake, and I did. But what I didn't do was cause a disenfranchised voter not to vote because that person had been recalled. That's why he couldn't vote. It wasn't, the MEC did not ask for my removal of office. I have paperwork here if anybody would like to see it, or you can go to their website. That's all I will say about that. I have tried to serve my constituents very well. I live in a district that has been very, more than I can even tell you, supportive of me in the last 4 years. And I hope in the future, and I hope I'm reelected, and I would appreciate your vote. And I'm for the community, not for Diane. I'm for the community, not for anyone else. This is a great community, as Beto said, and I love living here. Thank you.
I disagree. The Missouri Ethics Commission did ask for her resignation. They did indicate that she was guilty of violations. And Lee Summit needs to have a city council members who can work together respectfully to achieve common goals for the city and put their personal ambitions and self-promotion efforts aside. Character does matter. Honesty, integrity, dependability, an extremely wide range of interests and experiences and ability to cooperate and get along with others, that is what is essential. And that, as I understand, has been the character of my opponent her entire life.
We will put a bow around this package and close. Thank you for staying an extra 5 minutes, 6 minutes or so. I won't talk but another 20, so you'll be fine. But no, just thank you to all of the candidates putting yourselves out there. Appreciate you telling your story as it is. And I'll leave it at that. We also want to thank the audience for being here. I looked out as they were visiting, and we have, it looks like seniors here. We have young folks here. We have city council members in the audience. We have city employees, chamber members, business owners. It's a nice cross-representation. And from what I understand, Chad, you had 1 million viewers on Facebook, so on the mayoral, and I'm sure we'll have another 1 million for this as well. Thanks to the Innovation Campus, Missouri Innovation Campus. That's what MIC stands for, just in case you were wondering. So when somebody says MIC, it's not a chant. It's Missouri Innovation Campus. Thanks to Rick and the staff. Will Gibson, the little chia pet that I call him. Thanks to Will and Down to Earth. Mark Parrish with Boyd, Kenter, Thomas, and Parrish. And then Jabbar Wesley with Spire Energy. And then, of course, Chad, and kudos to you, because I have had a lot of compliments on Facebook, or not on Facebook, but from the video and audio. So thank you very much. Appreciate the audience being here tonight. Like I said, you stayed for 2 hours, so that's very nice. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for putting yourselves out there. Best to you. The election is Tuesday, April 3rd, but I do want to remind folks that we will have the forum for the school board election. That will be held Tuesday, March 27th from 5 to 8 at the Gamber Center. We'll have, right, an open sort of meet the candidates from 5 to 6, and then the discussion from 6 to 8 at the Gamber Center on 3rd. Thanks again for being here. Have a great night.